Hi, welcome back to the Introduction to Python Programming. This is section 5, strings of text, and it's a pretty important section to pay attention to because you end up working with text a lot, especially if you work in the business sector and you're writing custom programs for file and data transfers, because a lot of times you'll get some weird data in those files. But that's outside the scope of this course, so let's just go ahead and move through this section. All right, lesson objectives. Understand the following: creating text strings, text operations, substrings, text functions, formatting. And that last bullet is the commit related to the version control resources. So of course, when we go back to our Git lab environment, we will check out that commit to get access to the resources for this lesson. Creating strings and text operations. Now we've seen some of this already in the previous lesson when you saw a variable being equal to pizza. Pizza is a word, that's a string of text. That was a string. So single and double quotes, test and test, single, double quotes respectively. Utilizing both methods, he said this. So we put single quotes in a double quoted string, and within that string, those single quotes will exist. And those double quotes is telling Python that this is a string. We can create with the string function, which is str and then the brackets. So you can use the string function to create strings from other data types, or cast from one type to the string type. For example, if we have the integer 56, we can put it in the string function, and then it becomes the string 56, and it's no longer a number, it's a string. There's also text operations. The string object has a lot of different methods at its disposal. We're not going to talk about all of them in this lesson. We'll use them as we need them, and they'll get mentioned as we need them. But for example, we can split a string into a list via the split function. So in the screenshot, we can see that we're doing b equal to a dot split on line 5, and a is the string the large dog jumped. Now, when you don't pass an argument into the split function, it assumes that you want to split the object on empty space. So it gives us a list where the list is the large dog jumped. Okay, and then also the arithmetic symbols worked a little differently with strings. So if we set c equal to a plus a on line 9, we're going to get the large dog jumped, because it's assuming we just want to concatenate those together. Now, something to keep in mind is the string is immutable. So if you try to change the value of a string, you actually get a new data object. Okay, let's move on to the next item. Substrings and string functions. What is a substring? A substring is a string within a string. For example, the word the can be found within the phrase the cat. So the word the is a substring of the string the cat. We can access a substring with the splice method, which is a brackets with x colon y. So the cat with brackets 0 colon 3 yields the result of 3, because we're starting at position 0 and we're going forward 3 spaces. So start at 0, which would be before the t, go forward 3 spaces, which would be right after the e, and then we have the word the. So in the example, which looks a little bit blurry because it's probably blown up too much, we have a equal to hello, my name is John, and then a bracket 0 colon 5 bracket would get the word hello. Okay, and then more string functions. Length, len, or length, is the length of the string. Split, we talked about that in the previous slide. You have join, replace, strip. And as an example, the strip assumes you want to rid the string of empty space, the tab character, the new line character on both ends of the string. So not in the middle, but at the ends of the string. All right, let's move on. Formatting. Now, formatting becomes important, especially when you're printing out data, or you're making a console program that somebody's going to run on the command line. A lot of times we're going to want to see nice formatted data so that it's easy to read. So format text. Command line programs like the old DOS programs often benefit from text formatting because you want to make stuff readable so that you're not trying to dig around and accidentally misread information. Command line programs. In today's world, GUI interfaces are most common, but they do not make sense for programs with simple objectives. And there's plenty of Linux command line programs as examples. For example, you might have a program that just looks up the IP address of some computer and prints information on that computer. And you don't really need a GUI built for that. You can just use a command line program for it. And more string functions. Oh, that was on the previous slide too, so we're not going to reread that. But if we look at the screenshot, we can see that we have 4 variables, A through D, being set to different values. Then we have a padding variable being set to a value. And then on the strings, we're running a ljust, which stands for left justify. We're passing in that padding value, which would be 25. We're using string interpolation. What does that mean? Well, see that F right before the single quotes? That's telling Python that we're going to embed variables in the string. And then we use these curly brackets to embed those variables and make calls to functions that we're interested in using. So nothing too complicated there. We're just telling Python that, hey, this string is going to have variables embedded in it, and we indicate that with that F outside the quotes. And then we embed the characters we want. That left justify function, ljust, is telling it to pad the string so many characters. So if the string is only 10 characters long, it gets padded to 25 characters with empty space. If the character's 15 lines long, it gets padded to 25 still. That's what causes those variables on the right to line up so nicely, because those previous lines are 25 characters and they're padded with empty space to make sure that they're 25 characters. And that makes sure everything lines up and looks easy to read. So nothing too bad there. Of course, those will be in examples. Feel free to run it, change some of those values, experiment with it, make sure you understand how that simple formatting is working. Now, let's go ahead and jump back into the lab environment and take a look at some of those questions and answers, as well as some of the examples in this course or in this specific lesson. So here we are again. And again, I'm in section 4. I need to go to section 5. If you're having any kind of problems, like you accidentally changed a file in a previous lesson, just do this. Just do get reset hard. That throws away all your changes and will basically start you at the base settings for the project. So now I'm at section 4, which I already was. And you can run that command even if there's nothing to throw away. You can do it over and over. Of course, if you're getting into Git version control, you'll want to be sure that you do want to throw away those changes before you run such a command. I do know someone who ran that on accident and lost a lot of work because of it, but they were newer, and you know, sometimes people make that mistake when they're new. So, but we need to go back to checking out the right commit, and for section 5, that number or that hash code is, let me see here. Okay, I found it. E830EA. Okay, now we're at section 5. Let's double check the cheat sheet, which has additional information. Okay, be sure to look at the cheat sheet because it does have some additional information that wasn't covered in the lesson. Go ahead and close all these out. Let's take a quick look at the the examples. I know that last one was a good one, the formatting, because there was a little bit of stuff going on there. So if I right click and run example 3, you can see that that prints out. Now what happens if I change this? Let's change it to 50. So this is the kind of experimenting you want to do, especially when you're new and you might be having a little bit of trouble understanding what's going on. So I just changed that padding to 50. That variable is being used here as an argument to the left justify function. Now what is A equal to in this lesson? Well, it's equal to the string individual price. Now again, string interpolation is caused when we do this F outside these single quotes, which basically tells Python that the string is going to contain variables. So run this again. We see that moved out, and that's because this entire space needs to take up 50 characters. That's the padding. Now what happens if I put too few? Let's say I put 5. 5, not 6. Now this by itself is larger than 5, so what's going to happen? Let's go ahead and run and find out. It just all got squished together. So now it's not nice and lined up like it needs to be. All right, so let's go ahead and change that back to 20. Run that example again. Then D is just being used as part of the calculation. It's not being used for padding or anything. So that's you know, how formatting works. Let me go ahead and close that. Let's go ahead and look at the questions or the exercises. Task 1, create a string of text that includes a single and double quotes. Also include a variable in the string of text. Print out the text, okay? So that's kind of wrapping together a lot of the different string things, like using all the quotes together as well as including a variable. Task 2, we know that the plus concatenates text together. What does the multiplication symbol do? Why are data types important for these operations? And if you recall, data objects are what have a data type. When we create a data, or when Python creates a data object in the background, that data object gets a data type. And that data type tells Python what it can do with that value. So that's what task 2 question is referencing. Task 3, use a string method to print out the position of the single quote in the following string. Okay. Task 4, get the substring dog from the following string using the index method. The cow jumped over the dog. Then the cat meowed. Okay, so there's a couple functions you need to use here that we really didn't discuss in the lesson. And an example of that is the index method. So what you're going to want to do is, maybe, like a lot of programmers and developers do this, is you're going to want to go to Google and you're going to want to search Python index example. Because when I'm dealing with a new framework or programming concept that might be a little bit new to me, I usually do a quick Google search to make sure I'm looking at it the right way. So we have an example of using a list item, but we're using this against a string, not a list. So that might not be the best. Let's put the word string. Python string index method. That's what we want. And then we have hello, welcome to my world, text.index welcome. Let's go ahead and run that. Okay, that's taking a little bit longer. So what is it? It prints out 7. So what is that doing? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's where it's starting. This is the 7th character position. So that's what the index is doing for us. So go ahead and pause the video and give this a good try by yourself. Make sure you understand what's going on and that you can complete these tasks. And we're going to go over that next. And if you're having a little bit of trouble, let's go ahead and discuss the answers. So task 1 answer, A equals test, print F, double quotes, single quotes, and then A embedded. So F indicates that string interpolation. We're using a variable A in there, and we have single quotes in there. So they're very simple and completes the task 1 request. Task 2 answer. The multiplication allows you to duplicate strings of text. Data types are important for these operations because multiplication must behave differently for text and numbers. So when we're dealing with text, we actually create duplicates of the text that we multiply. But for numbers, we would, multiply numbers together in the mathematical sense. 3 times 3 is 9, whereas the word the times 3 would be 3 thes. Task 3 answer. A is equal to the that string, which is starting with double quotes, and then a single quote in the middle there. And then we print a index of the single quote with double quotes around it. Now, why would we not put 3 single quotes? Because Python would get confused by that, because the single quote within the single quote, it wouldn't know where one begins and the other ends. That's why we have the different quotes. We have the single quotes and the double quotes, and we can encase the different ones in each other. All right, task 4 answer. A equals the cow jumped over the dog, then the cat meowed. So this one was a little bit more challenging. I really hope you figured it out though. If not, that's fine. We're kind of getting, we're going to start to move deeper into kind of like a step-by-step, more complicated programming where we use the tools that we've been taught. So how did we solve this problem? Well, we set the variable a equal to that string. And then we got the index of the period that occurred in that string. And then we subtracted 3 from it. And then we put a colon. And then we again got the index of that period. So that index is going to be where that period occurs minus 3, which is going to put us at right before the D. And then we just got the index of the period again, which is going to be after the G. So then we're going to grab that word dog out of there. Okay. So I hope you got that. That finishes the lab environment for this lesson. And let's go ahead and head back to the slideshow and finish it out. All right, we're back at the slideshow. Let's go ahead and move through this. We already talked about this slide. This is the section conclusion. What did we learn about in this lesson? Creating strings within the Python environment. Operations and substrings. Some of our tasks included using the index function. And then within the lesson itself, we discussed the split function and some other functions as well. We discussed substrings. And then we looked at functions and formatting. Again, we discussed that formatting is pretty useful when you want to make data more readable for the user. You don't want a bunch of garbled up text where the data is embedded somewhere in there. You want it to be easy to read, and we can use various formatting options to achieve that kind of a design within a Python program, especially the console programs. So that brings this lesson to a close. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you in the next. Thank you.